Welcome. Today we're going to share a story, a really unsettling one. It's a true crime case that just unfolds in ways you wouldn't expect. It's quite chilling, actually. It really pulls back the curtain on the darker side of online interactions, the deceptive side. We're looking at a digital labyrinth here where, the line between what's real and what's made up gets incredibly blurry, with terrifying results. Our main source for this is excerpts from a YouTube video. It's called Mark and John, Online Chat Room, 2 Boys, 1 Spy. Now, just so you know, we'll be using pseudonyms, Mark and John, just like in the source material, to respect everyone's privacy. Okay, so let's set the scene. It starts quietly enough. Aldridge, a peaceful town in England. The date is June 29th, 2003, a Sunday afternoon. Seemed totally ordinary, until suddenly it was shattered by this brutal attack. In a place called Goose Green Alley, picture it, a warm, quiet Sunday. Then ambulance sirens cutting through the peace. They're heading to Goose Green Alley. And there, they find a 14-year-old boy, John. He's severely wounded. He'd been stabbed. Not just once, but twice.
Once in the chest and then again in the abdomen. His condition was, critical. The knife had hit vital organs, his liver, a lung, his stomach. He had internal bleeding, too, in his respiratory system. He actually went into cardiac arrest twice, right there. Miraculously, though, the doctor saved him. But it involved major surgery. They even had to remove his gallbladder. And then straight onto life support. You can imagine the shock in this quiet town, Aldridge. Very low crime rate normally. And this happened in broad daylight. Everyone was just shaken. The police immediately started questioning Mark. He was John's friend, 16 years old. He was with John, and he is the one who called for help. Mark's initial story to the police was quite detailed. He said he and John were walking back from McDonald's. Suddenly, this hooded male appears, maybe 20 years old, black hoodie, black jeans, white baseball cap, holding a knife. Mark said this guy attacked John, stabbed him once, then tried to drag both of them into the alley. Inside the alley, he stabbed John again in the stomach. Then the attacker just fled, didn't harm Mark at all. So police followed this lead. They released a sketch based on Mark's description to the Manchester Evening News, hoping someone would recognize him. But nothing. No leads came in, and fear in the community just started to escalate. With no tips, the police turned to the next logical step, reviewing CCTV footage around Goose Green Alley, looking for this assailant. And what that CCTV footage showed, it was shocking. It completely turned the case upside down. Took it in a direction nobody could have possibly predicted. But to really grasp this twist, we need a bit of context about the internet back then. Early 2000s in the UK. This was when the internet was really booming for home users, becoming accessible, affordable, and for teenagers, the big thing was MSN Chat Room. It was hugely popular. So easy to use, no tech skills needed. But here's the key thing, the part that really enabled everything that followed. There was zero identity verification. None. You could create any username you wanted, any avatar. You could even have unlimited accounts.
Yeah, and that environment, that total anonymity and lack of verification, it really became a perfect breeding ground for deception. It allowed people to build completely new identities. And for young people, especially, maybe those looking for connection, the lines between reality and fantasy could blur very, very quickly.
Exactly. And that's precisely what happened here. Let's talk about Mark's online life. Mark was 16, popular kid, good-looking, played football, from a middle-class family in Stockport. He joined an MSN Chat Room in February 2003, just looking to make some female friends, pretty normal stuff. And his first significant connection was with someone called Rachel Estevez. Claimed she was 16, from Manchester. Her profile pic. Slim, blonde, attractive girl. They started chatting a lot. Mark used his webcam so Rachel could see him, but she always kept her camera off. Red flag maybe, but back then. Anyway, their relationship deepened fast. Mark fell for her. They became online cybersex partners, which, was a concept just emerging then, kind of blurring lines for young people about what intimacy meant online. Then Rachel introduced Mark to her brother, John, who was 14. Mark learned they were half-siblings, both from middle-class backgrounds in Manchester. And John's backstory was pretty trouble. An abusive biological dad who apparently threw him out as a baby, then abandoned the family when John was 7. Their mom later remarried Rachel's father. Despite the age gap, Mark and John became good friends. They bonded over games, football, girls, and, interestingly, crime investigation movies. Especially Catch Me If You Can. But Mark's priority was still chatting with Rachel. Then things started to get weird. April 2003, a new user pops up in their chat room. Kevin McRader! He announces himself in big pink letters. He's gay, has a foot fetish. Just out there. And Kevin was rude, insulting people, claimed he was a stalker. Mark just dismissed him at first. A keyboard warrior, someone trying to get a reaction.
But that's where the anonymity becomes dangerous, isn't it? It empowers people like Kevin to act without consequence, but also to potentially gather information and seem like a real threat.
Absolutely. And Kevin's manipulative power quickly became terrifyingly real. He started revealing private, intimate details about Mark, Rachel, and John, even their real-world locations. Mark suddenly realized this wasn't just some troll. Kevin felt like a genuine threat, and the threats escalated. Kevin threatened to rape and kill Rachel unless Mark performed a sexual act on his webcam. Mark, terrified for Rachel, actually complied, did what Kevin demanded. Rachel was apparently touched by his sacrifice, but told him never to do it again. And this just cemented Mark's feelings, his loyalty to Rachel. Then came another blow, the disappearance of Rachel. They'd made plans, Mark and Rachel, to finally meet in person in Manchester. Mark went to the designated spot, waited for hours, but Rachel never showed up. He went home, completely heartbroken, only to find an email waiting for him from Kevin. And Kevin's email, it was horrific. He claimed he'd kidnapped, raped, and murdered Rachel. He described it in graphic detail, drowning her, gloating about how she screamed for Mark. Mark was just shattered, convinced he was somehow responsible for her death. His school grades plummeted. He didn't report it, though. He assumed the police would handle it, inform Rachel's family. Later, John told Mark he knew Rachel was dead too, and he was also distraught. Mark, understandably, retreated from the internet for a bit, just heartbroken. But eventually, he went back to the chat room, and there he met someone new, Lindsay Is, another young female user. Mark opened up to Lindsay, told her about Rachel and Lindsay. She eventually revealed a massive secret. She claimed she was an MI6 agent, British Secret Intelligence Service. She said the government had sent her, specifically to protect John from Kevin, the same person who'd supposedly murdered Rachel. She made Mark promise to keep her secret and asked him to help her protect John. Then, the very next day, Mark gets this automated email from Lindsay, set up to send if she was killed on her mission. In the email, she asked Mark to carry on her mission, protect John. Mark believed she was dead now, too, just when things couldn't get stranger. Rachel's account suddenly came back online, claiming she'd been in a coma for a month. And get this, that she was pregnant with Mark's child. Mark was completely bewildered. They'd never even met in person. How could she be pregnant? But before he could ask anything, Rachel went offline again, just vanished. And shortly after that, a new username appears, Janet Dobinson, supposedly a 40-year-old woman, and she's openly looking for a capable 16-year-old boy to be a spy. Mark, who loves spy movies, was instantly hooked. He contacted Janet. Janet claimed she was a high-ranking MI6 officer, Lindsay's superior, in fact. She answered all Mark's questions about MI6 really convincingly, used formal language, spy jargon. Mark was completely sold. He agreed to join MI6. He was finally going to be a spy.
And you see here the psychological hook, don't you? Especially for someone young, maybe feeling powerless after the trauma with Rachel. This offers excitement, purpose, a role in something important. The immersive nature of this online role-playing, combined with Mark's existing interest in spy stories, it just creates this perfect storm where fantasy starts feeling incredibly real. The lines just dissolve.
It's like he was groomed, almost, into this fantasy world. So Janet tells Mark his first task is to prove himself by protecting John. She reveals John is vital to the British government. Why? Because apparently he's the only one who can open this huge safe full of wealth under the Atlantic Ocean, activated by a secret code from the Queen, no less. Janet's hinted there were even deeper secrets. Mark was completely captivated. So he starts his missions, protecting John at school when they were out, reporting back to Janet, and Janet always seemed to know everything they did. She claimed other agents were watching them, which Mark just saw as, part of his MI6 evaluation. The missions escalated. Janet's tested Mark's ability to get John out of school. Mark managed it by faking a dental emergency. But then John's mother found the chat logs, discovered Janet's identity, or what she thought was her identity. She banned both boys from the internet. Mark, however, eventually found a way back online, and Janet contacted him again. Urgent. Top secret mission. This one was deeply disturbing. Mark had to make John appear gay by performing oral sex on him. Janet claimed if he failed, the government would kill her. This was his final test for MI6. Mark, utterly convinced by this point, believed her. When John stayed over one weekend, Mark did it, performed the act, and then came the final ultimate betrayal. Janet congratulated Mark, confirmed he was now in MI6. Then she asked him, was he ready to kill someone close to him? Mark, still thinking this was all part of the test, some psychological evaluation, agreed. Yes, he was ready. And then Janet ordered him kill John. Mark was shocked, but Janet gave him a reason. She claimed John had a brain tumor. Killing him wouldn't be murder, it would be an act of mercy, sparing him the suffering. She even offered Mark £10 million from MI6 for the job. Now, this is the truly chilling part, what cemented it for Mark. Soon after, John confided in Mark that he did have a brain tumor. This was a detail Janet had known before John told him. For Mark, this was proof. Janet was real, MI6 was real, killing John was an act of mercy, he agreed to the mission. Janet laid out the plan. The date, June 29, 2003, the place, Goose Green Alley. She told him what kind of knife to use, told him to say, "I love you, friend," right before doing it, and she gave him a code, 6969. If he saw or heard that code, the mission was off.
It's almost beyond comprehension how layered this manipulation was. Using John's apparent real-life illness, something deeply personal and worrying, as the final piece to validate the entire fantasy structure. It's psychologically devastating.
Utterly. So the day arrives, June 29th, 2003. Mark buys the knife. He takes John to Goose Green Alley. He hesitates. He looks around, desperately searching for that code, 6969, but he sees nothing, hears nothing. Convinced he has no choice, that he has to proceed, he says the words, "I love you, friend," and then he stabs John in the chest. John collapses. He asks for an ambulance, but Mark tells him to be quiet. He drags John deeper into the alley. He realizes the first wound maybe wasn't deep enough, so he stabs John again, this time in the stomach. John goes motionless, and then Mark just waits. He waits for Janet, for MI6 agents to show up, to extract her, to tell him what to do next, but nobody comes. After waiting, how long, we don't know, but after waiting, he finally calls for an ambulance, and then he tells the police the story he'd prepared about the hooded attacker. But the police, remember, had that CCTV footage from Goose Green Alley. It showed only 2 people entering the alley, Mark and John, and nobody else leaving. Mark was now the prime suspect. Faced with this evidence, Mark finally admitted it. He confessed to stabbing John, but initially he claimed voices in his head made him do it. He started talking about MI6, about Janet. He still seemed to believe Janet would swoop in and save him. He was reluctant to reveal what he thought were state secrets. He was sent to a youth detention center. It was only there that Mark learned the truth. John had survived. He was going to recover, and the realization hit Mark. His life could be over. John would testify against him. He broke down. And he told the police everything. The whole story. The MI6 agency, Janet Dobinson, the treasure under the Atlantic, his mission to protect John, the Mercy killing, all of it. At first, the police thought it was just fantasy, a desperate, elaborate excuse. But something about Mark's sincerity, maybe the sheer detail, made them pause. They decided to investigate his computer. And there it was, the chat logs with Janet Dobinson, all the bizarre instructions. As they sifted through thousands of lines of chat, 58,000 lines, 133 gigabytes of data, it's staggering they noticed something. A tiny detail. All 5 of those mysterious accounts, Rachel, Kevin, Lindsay, Janet, they all consistently misspelled one word. Maybe. They always wrote it as maybe.
It's such a small slip. But often it's those trivial inconsistencies that unravel these complex deceptions, a linguistic fingerprint.
Exactly. This tiny clue pointed towards a single person behind all the accounts. Armed with this, the police went to John's home. His mother directed them to his computer. And there, logged in on John's machine, they found Janet Dobinson's account. And Rachel's. And Kevin's. And Lindsay's. All of them. It was confirmed. John had created every single one of those personas. While recovering in the hospital, John calmly admitted it all. He confessed to creating everyone: Rachel, Kevin, Lindsay, Janet. He admitted orchestrating his own attempted murder, his motive. He said his family was incredibly strict. He was bullied relentlessly at school by older boys. He had no male friends, apparently, only female ones. The internet became his escape, his comfort zone. He created Rachel first to feel loved, to get the attention he craved but didn't have in real life.
It's a tragic picture, really. Someone feeling so isolated and inadequate in their real life that they resort to building an entire false world online just to feel some connection, some control.
And the lies just spiraled. John, as Rachel, introduced himself, the real John, to Mark, but then he started to fear Mark would find out the truth about Rachel and hate him. He also realized that he, as Rachel, had fallen for Mark, but Mark only loved the fictional Rachel, so he created Kevin. The idea was to kill off Rachel, remove her from the equation, hoping Mark would then focus his attention and affection onto the real John. But when Mark just got depressed after Rachel's supposed death, John needed another way to engage him, so he created Lindsay, the MI6 agent, again, seeking that connection, that love. He said as the lies got deeper and more tangled, he just ran out of ideas. He felt trapped. Creating Janet and the whole MI6 plot, culminating in the order to kill him, was his way out. A desperate, twisted way to end the charade he'd built. He genuinely thought Mark would kill him.
It speaks volumes about the psychological dangers, especially for vulnerable young people, of over-investing in digital personas. When fantasy becomes the primary source of emotional fulfillment, the lines don't just blur, they can completely vanish, leading to truly terrifying real-world consequences. Identity formation becomes incredibly fragile.
The consequences were severe, even if mitigated by their youth. On May 28, 2004, both boys faced trial. Mark was found guilty of attempted murder. John was found guilty of inciting self-murder. This was actually the first time anyone had been convicted of that specific crime in UK history, a landmark case. Because they were young, the sentences focused on rehabilitation. John got 3 years probation, had to undergo psychiatric evaluation, and was banned from the internet. Mark received 2 years probation and was also banned from the internet. The court essentially saw both of them as victims of these incredibly bizarre and tragic circumstances. It's just an unbelievable story. The sheer depth of the deception, the layers upon layers, and the consequences that no one could have foreseen. John's manipulation is chilling, yes, but equally chilling is how completely Mark bought into this fabricated reality, how he was led step by step to the brink. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How thin is that line between who we are online and who we are in reality, and what happens when that line just disappears? When someone else's fantasy pulls you in so completely that you lose sight of everything else? It's a dark thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this story. If you found this case as captivating and disturbing as we did, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. We explore more true crime and horror stories there. Until next time, please take care and stay safe out there.